Elite campuses show signs the gender ideology wave is receding. A new report from the Center for Heterodox Social Science suggests that the gender ideology movement among Western youth may be losing steam, particularly within elite academic institutions. Drawing on data from FIRE and several top U.S. schools, the study found that the share of students identifying as non-binary has fallen by more than half since 2023. Across 60,000 undergraduates surveyed, the percentage identifying as something other than male or female dropped from 7% to 3.6%. While not a national picture, this trend is significant because cultural fashions often begin and end among the elite. Psychologist Rob Henderson's concept of luxury beliefs helps explain how ideological trends trickle down from privileged circles before losing credibility. If this shift continues, it could signal a broader societal correction after a decade of ideological excess, institutional capture, and harmful medical interventions promoted under the banner of gender affirmation. So, could this be the first sign that culture is beginning to re-embrace biological reality?
Yeah, I think this is more than the first sign. I think it's like the second or third. Love him or hate him, I think Trump moved the country in the right direction with a lot of this stuff. When you saw the Biden administration, really when you saw the Obama administration come to an end, it was there. And then when you saw everybody push back so hard against Trump, that actually created this really, really large division where people were basically willing to go further down their ideological line just to prove a point. Kind of like women taking Tylenol now because it can be connected to autism. It doesn't cause it, but it's connected because of what it does to your body when you get vaccinated. So people just are like, well, look, I'm gonna need a whole bottle of Tylenol. Some people are really suffering from that. I'm pretty sure some pretty bad things happened after that. But again, it just shows people are willing to, their Trump derangement syndrome, for lack of a better term, is so real that they'll do anything in opposition to what he says. Mm-hmm. So when he was in office, the first time, I think a lot of this stuff really caught fire. It really started to make some moves. And he was just so turned around, and he had basically most of the government working against him, that I don't think any of these things were on his radar. Plus, I also think they were, again, they were really hitting the hockey stick part of growth in terms of, mass adoption. And then through the Biden administration, not only did they support it, they promoted it, they funded it, they changed Title IX, they did a lot of crazy shit. So what happens, these kids are going to do things that are rebellious in school because they're ideological and all this other crap. And I get it, it's a phase. But when the government is then supporting and promoting it, and not only that, incentivizing it and rewarding younger kids for it before they're even really in the rebellious phase, these young kids, 12, 15, that kind of shit, it really gets a foothold, right? So I think a lot of this was really amplified because of a political stance. And I think now that Trump came in, he's like, whoa, this is getting out of hand. So we're going to pull all the funding for anybody that's basically endorsing or enforcing, rather is a better word, anything from the new Title IX stuff. No more boys and women's sports. We're done with that. No more boys and women's change rooms. And there are severe penalties for doing so. So that came out, and that for me changes things on the institutional level. But it also changes things sort of in the zeitgeist. People go, oh, I don't have to play this stupid game anymore. Because a lot of people, and like you said last time, I think the study was in Canada, the number of kids, it's like over 50% in post-secondary school that won't be honest with how they feel about things because they feel if they don't toe the liberal line, they will be ostracized. So when you have someone like Trump coming out and saying, no, actually, that's illegal now, we'll take all your funding, it permeates in a lot of other ways, and people go, oh God, finally, I can stop playing this stupid game. So I imagine what this did was Trump being the first, this being the second, this being sort of the knock-on effect of that, is people are starting to not just re-embrace biological reality, they're able to get out from under this spell. Now, at this point, I believe it's just the ones that didn't want to play the game. I think it's a lot of them, a lot of those guys that are like, I'm going to stereotype here for a second, but probably a lot of the good-looking jocks that are like, yeah, I'm non-binary because I want to get laid. Because if I'm not a part of this ally group,
I don't think that was happening at all.
Oh no, I know it was. I know.
Jocks?
I know a number of people that you'd be like, this doesn't make any sense that they're participating in this game. In Canada, I know people personally in Canada that was going on, and like even talking to the parents, they're like, we know it's bullshit. We know they're not doing it because we're letting it pass because they're not doing anything other than just flagging or signaling, hey, yeah, sure, whatever, so they can be a part of these groups. So it's social pressure, right? And again, I'm not sure that's happening at scale, but I would imagine this is, again, the people that were buying into it for the sake of fitting in. I think that's who you've got now. I think the third one is when people that were somewhat convinced by this nonsense, when they start backing out, I think it'll have a lot of momentum and hopefully come to an end. And look, just to kind of contextualize where I probably don't need to, if someone feels like they're a part of some other gender group or whatever, or LGBTQ or anything like that, I don't care. Good for you. Go be a part of that. If that's who you are and that's what you think best represents you, go nuts. Just do it when you're over 18 and just do it on your own and don't push it on other people. I have no problem with people expressing themselves in that way. It's just that it's disproportionately out of whack and it's become part of policy, which is the real issue here.
I get the added context, but I think we're so far past that, especially when you've got these institutions that are shoving it down their throats and refusing to back away from these kind of things. Because the reality is that, you know, for a lot of people, this isn't just going and expressing themselves. It's nice to think of it that way, but a lot of these kids, especially the ones that end up on hormone blockers and stuff, it's like they have irreversible damage for the rest of their life.
Oh, yeah. That's a group that I think is going to take a while to get to, for sure. When you make those kinds of decisions, I think you overly commit to identifying with this group of people. I think you're gonna fight it tooth and nail to pull your way out.
Mm-hmm. I thought the most interesting part of that study, though, was the correlation between, now again, this doesn't mean it's causation, but the correlation between anxiety and depression rates going alongside those non-binary identifications. So as you watch depression and anxiety start to fall, which I believe was probably largely because of COVID and those policies and the lockdowns and isolation and all of that kind of stuff, then you're starting to see that at the same time, those people identifying as non-binary or a separate gender, a different gender, are starting to decline along with it. But that goes completely in line with Hannah Barnes' book, Time to Think, which was about the Tavistock Clinic, and how the vast majority of those kids in there not only had psychological issues, whether it be like anxiety or depression, but they had 5 interlinking issues, like major issues, whether it was abuse at home, all of this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, this is what ended up getting sold to these kids that were in a very difficult place and time. I mean, and I can understand it. Like, dude, you even just look at what's going on in the world when it comes to technology and all of this kind of stuff. Like, this is definitely starting to send humans haywire.
Agreed.
Just the rate of change in the world. And so I feel like things like this can give people the semblance of control over their lives again. If they feel like everything is so out of their control, it's like, oh, well, I'm so in control that I can decide, you know, what my gender is.
Sure.
And it gives them like an outlet for that.
It gives them an opportunity to take power.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Like agreed. Life is chaotic, especially for young kids that are very impressionable. So you give them the opportunity to take control of it and get support and reward for it. Yeah, that goes a long way to create some stability.
And that's why,
oddly enough,
to me, my issue has never been with a lot of the young people that are falling prey to this ideology. It's been the people that are enabling it in the institutions.
100%.
The doctors that are giving these kids chemical castration drugs that are mutilating them through surgeries that often have major side effects down the road.
Pretty much always.
Like it's bad. And so to me, I still think that, you know, I think it's very similar to COVID in the sense where there's definitely people that deserve to go to jail for what they've done. And I actually bet too, what you'd see is that it's a small number of institutions that have done the vast majority of these surgeries and such. And so I actually don't think it would be a terribly lot of people, but I do think that there's definitely people that deserve to go to jail for what they've done to a lot of these kids.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think there's 2 really big sides to this. One is, you know, the group of people that are so overly identified with political ideology and a political party that it doesn't matter what they say or do. They'll scream from the top of the mountain that it's right. and it doesn't have to make any sense because they tap into the emotional part of their brains and logic is gone. Doesn't even make it. Like I think about it like with my sister, the things that she believes and says, I'm like, you're unwell. Like that's crazy that you support these belief systems with zero objective facts whatsoever to back you up. And met with facts, all you do is either lose your temper or say something insane, or you repeat yourself over and over again trying to convince me. And it's weird from like this moral high ground. I go, you're wild, man. That just doesn't make any sense. But it's like, I'm not trying to pick on her necessarily, just to give you like an inside look of being like, yeah, when you look at this group, it's either the people that are really, really ideologically identified with their party, so they champion this kind of stuff. And then you have those other people that are predatory going, we can make a lot of money off of this. Mm-hmm. And I think that happens throughout politics. I don't think like right now we're talking about people in the medical system. So you've got the ideological alignment, right? Championing these ideas, championing in the media as well, because again, it's part of their political strategy. And then you have the people in the medical system right now capitalizing on it. Very evil. But the same thing happens with literally everything. Look at the green agenda and all these green slush funds and all this other money people are making. Like, oh yeah, we're going to create this and do that and capture carbon. And I bet the efficiency on those projects is single digit, to be quite honest with you, the number that actually work. So you get these people that go, okay, ideological alignment, media support, and then you got this group in the bottom that is predatory. I think it happens across the political spectrum. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think it's just liberals. I think it's Republicans. I think it's all political parties at one time or another sort of leverage tax dollars in that way. This is just one of the most harmful. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that it's coming to an end because like you said, the prey are little kids. It's not just our tax dollars and energy costs more. So it costs more to put food on the table, which is a mess, which is totally fucked. Don't get me wrong. But this is ruining these kids' lives and they don't have the mental faculties to understand the ramifications of their decisions. So this might be the worst one out there.
Yeah, I agree. And just touching on that Rob Henderson bit, because with his concept of luxury beliefs, I definitely believe this is one. His whole thesis with luxury beliefs, which is great, is that once material wealth started becoming extremely common and essentially people, you could get a nice suit for $300. Yeah. That you could get a nice suit for or a decent car and all of this kind of stuff. Then elites had to start separating themselves in ways that weren't just material to essentially elevate their status.
Of course.
And so they started having what he deemed luxury beliefs. And these would be the kind of beliefs like, you don't need to be monogamous because, an elite person that makes lots of money and has all this social status, well, they probably actually don't need to be monogamous because they can hire nannies and they have all the help and blah, blah, blah. But then you've got people that are on the lower class that these beliefs end up eventually trickling down to. I mean, we're seeing it where a lot of people now marriage is not the institution it was 50% years ago.
50% divorce rate.
Right.
Yeah.
But even too, you look at people's mentality towards it as well. It's kind of like, how often do you see now where people, have kids and then get married 5 years later? And it's just like, there's no real importance put on the marriage anymore, which I think is terrible. But societally, that's, I think, a big issue. But either way, they have these beliefs that don't incur any cost on them, elevate their status as being more moral. And then but the people on the lower rung that end up wanting to emulate the elites because they're always the trendsetters, then they pick up those beliefs and it becomes actually extremely detrimental to them.
Yeah.
Another one would be like, say that you don't need religion. And it's like, well, in a lot of lower class communities, the church is often like the last line of defense for things like if you're hungry, the church will help feed you and all of these kind of things. So it's like, yeah, you have your own things high up that allow you to have community in these elite circles, but lower class people don't necessarily have that. Anyways, I think this gender ideology stuff was that. We saw it definitely come from these elite circles first, and then it's definitely starting to look like it's trickling out now of those elite circles. Because too, even if you look at it, it's like, okay, if this is a luxury belief, this was supposed to like elevate my status. Well, now if the everyday people are on board with it, well, I'm over it. That toy's not fun
Yeah,
anymore.
if everybody's got one, then
Yeah.
yes.
And then you start to see that. So then the elite dispense with it once the lower classes pick it up, and then once the elite dispense with it, then the lower classes go, we don't need this anymore.
It's kind of a top-down thing on its way in and on its way out.
And so I think altogether it'll probably take five years or so for this to completely go away. But it is crazy that this is one of the first big social contagions that led to legitimate mutilation.
And what a terrible cross to bear for that generation. Because you look at every generation and they always have crosses to bear, right? Everyone does, whether it's war, whether it's a bad economy, whether it's lack of opportunity, whatever it may be, tyrannical government. There's always something depending where you are. But this generation coming up right now, it's like, they've got the best the world's ever been in terms of technology, medicine, opportunity. Well, not opportunity. But in a lot of ways, the world's the best it's ever been in communication, except that they also got handcuffed with social media, bad psychological problems, mental health, and this insane shit. So it's just, you think about it, we've had our tough goes, and like I said, every generation does, but you have this opportunity to overcome it over time. For a lot of these kids, this is, like you said, I'm being hyperbolic when I say a death sentence, but it's life altering in such a negative way.